Okay, I'm Cheryl Jennings. I'm a visiting professor at UNT, and this session is going to be on the TexAS 268. That is the new assessment that's in place. I have a PowerPoint that I'll be showing you, and we'll go to some websites. There'll be an overview of the test. There'll be, I'll show you some of the questions, some of the tips from people who have taken it before. I know a couple of you are my current interns, and some of you may be doing your internship later on in the program. So I will also be talking to you about how you get approved to take this exam during your internship. If you have questions, if you would put those in the chat box, or just save them to the end. I'll address questions at the end, but I think going through the entire PowerPoint first and the presentation first may answer some of your questions. If not, jot them down and we'll have a question and answer time at the end. So I'm going to be sharing my screen with you so that you can see the websites and the PowerPoint. So let me get that up and going. Okay, Michael, I know you're on. Can you see and hear everything? Would you let me know kind of as much?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Thanks, Michael.
Yes, you're welcome.
Okay, I'll be going back and forth some, so I may have to get out of the PowerPoint back into things like that, but otherwise. Okay, the session is for principal certification. So if you're not on here for principal certification, then you're in the wrong place, but I don't think any of you are. So I'll just keep moving. First, I want to address how did we get here? There were some changes in the state with the State Board of Educator certification in 2016. They adopted a new set of principal standards, and those are in the Texas Administrative Code. The Administrative Code is law, so these are the rules, regulations that we're expected to follow in order to become administrators. These are also what current administrators are evaluated on through the TPES, or if it's a private school, they don't have to use these, but charter schools and public schools do use these. This is where you'll see there are the domains of school culture, leading learning, down human capital, executive leadership, strategic operations, and ethics, equity, and diversity. And within those domains are all of the skills and just behaviors that they expect from campus principals. So it is in law, and that law was, these laws, or these what am I trying to say? This set of knowledge and skills were passed in 2016, and so that brought about the new test. It brought about a new emphasis on instructional leadership, and it led to those 6 domains I showed you, and under those 6 domains, there are 11 competencies. So all of the courses that you have with UNT are based on those domains of leadership, those 11 competencies, and those standards. Every course we have addresses 1, 2, 3, maybe more of those. For example, if you are now taking the 5680 K-12 curriculum class, there are 2 competencies that are covered in that class, competencies 3 and 4. And that should be addressed in your syllabus so that you know what classes are concentrating on which different competencies and which different domains. So that's kind of how we got here to the 268. The 068, which ended as of August 31st, was based on some older standards, older domains, older competencies. They're very similar to the new ones, but there are now 11 competencies instead of 9. And some of you may have had started the program when we were still with the 9 competencies, but now you are into the new set, and so this is what we want to concentrate on for you in order to be ready for the 268 exam. There are 5 requirements to obtain the principal as instructional leader certificate. It used to just be principal certification. They've changed the title to instructional leader. So that in itself tells you where the state is going as far as the direction they want principals to move and how they oversee schools, how they supervise schools. It's much more of an instructional approach instead of just a management approach. So 5 requirements that you have to have. You have to have a master's degree. You have to have your valid teaching certificate. You have to have a minimum of 2 years of teaching experience. You have to have successfully completed an approved principal educator preparation program, which is what you're enrolled in now. And then you have to complete the required exams, the 268, and now as of September 1, the PASL, which are the 3 performance tasks, and that one is known as the 368. So those 5 things. If your master's degree is in a different area and you're just doing certification only, you still have to have that master's degree on your transcript. If you are a CNI major, you also have some other requirements for your master's degree, like a portfolio and some things like that. So you'll want to make sure that you complete everything for your master's degree if it's not in educational leadership, and the principal certification classes. The basics of the 268. When it was first developed, it had 90 selected response questions, but based on the pilot exam that ran in the spring, they got feedback that that was too many. So they did cut it to 70 selected response questions. 58 of those are actually scored, 12 are field tests. And just like when you administer STAR to your students or the end of course exams, you don't know which ones are field tests and you don't know which ones are scored. Same thing here. They are not going to differentiate for you. So you want to make sure that you do your best on all 70 questions. There are 4 constructed response questions. These are basically short answer essay questions. They just use the term constructed response. If you are familiar with 4th grade writing, the EOC writing, you know how students have to answer to a prompt. Same thing for this, a little more in depth, quite a bit more in depth, I should say. There is a 5-hour time limit. However, note here, 15 minutes of that is a required tutorial and a compliance agreement that you have to, check off that you've read and you've agreed. So the actual test time is only 4 hours and 45 minutes. The 068 exam was also 5 hours, but it didn't have constructed response questions. It was just selected response questions. So people were finishing that test in 2 to 2.5 hours. I will tell you from the people who have taken this, they are using the entire time for this test. So you'll see later on in the PowerPoint, one of the tips that those students have given is get yourself ready for 5 hours of sitting and 5 hours of just concentrating on an exam. I don't think any of us, unless we're Netflix binging, sit for 5 hours at a time, and then you're not really having to think, you're just watching something. So preparing yourself for this stretch of time and knowing how to help yourself during that time, give your brain a break and things like that is something that's going to be important for you to familiarize your own body with. The scoring for the 268 at this point, it is a phase-in model. As of September 2021, so that's in 2 years, then they will have the set standard that they're going to score with. But right now, it's 1 SEM below standard. Of the selected response questions, you can see you have to get 36 out of 58 of those correct. Of the constructed response, you get 20 out of 32 points. The way those are scored, there are 2 raters, 2 readers. They're scored on a 1 to 4 scale, just like STAR writing is, with 1 being low, 4 being high. So if you take that, if you get the high score, 4 points times 2 raters, you're going to get each question being worth 8 points. So a total of 32 points. Right now, with it being 1 SEM below standard, you need to score at least a 2 or a 3 for a maximum of 20 points so that you hit the passing range. Now, the select response and the constructed response questions are not scored separately. Those scores are all put together. The selected response questions are worth 1 point each. And then, of course, the constructed response questions are 8 points each. So they take those two and they combine them. So your scaled score, not your raw score, your scaled score has to be a 240 to be passing. But what they've said is if you don't do as well on selected response, but you score really high on the constructed response, you can pull that up to passing, or vice versa. You don't do as well on constructed response, but you ace the selected response questions. You can still pass because of the way they combine those. You can pass without finishing. I did have a student this summer who didn't finish, and I will tell you she did not pass. But what she did not finish were constructed response questions. She spent, and she told me herself, she said she spent too much time on the response questions, ran out of time, didn't even get to one of them. So it is possible to finish, to not finish and pass, but it's not guaranteed. You do get 0 points for unanswered questions. This is the breakdown so that you know what kind of gets you more bang for your buck. Domain 2, which is leading learning, that's your competency 3 and 4. It is your curriculum and instruction. Those are the 2 areas that weigh the most on this exam. You can see that it's 16% of the selected response items, 25% of the constructed response items, total of 41 to 45%. So that's the area that you really want to focus on and be strong in. The second area would be school culture. You can see that's 22 to 23% of the test. That's competencies 1 and 2, which are your stakeholders, working with the community, working with parents, vision, mission, culture, climate, things of that nature. So competencies 1 through 4 are going to be making up over 60% of your exam. So that's where you want to really focus. The others are important. Human capital, 5 and 6, that's where you work on professional development, growing your teachers, hiring your teachers, things of that nature. And then you get into executive leadership, strategic operations, ethics, equity, and diversity. Those are a lot less percentage-wise. Ethics, equity, and diversity does not have its own area that's addressed. That's intertwined throughout the other domains and areas. So as you study in your courses, ethics, equity, and diversity will be there, but it's really not its own separate domain that's focused on. So again, leading learning, school culture, and if you've worked with Leverage Leadership 2.0, that book, you know that that's what that book focuses mostly on. There are 3 question formats. There are single questions, clustered sets, and then your constructed response questions. So your 70 questions of selected response could be a single question or a clustered set. And then you have the 4 constructed response questions. The single questions, you can see here that it presents a direct question or an incomplete statement. Now I'm going to tell you that direct question or incomplete statement is usually a paragraph or 2 long. It's not just a 2-sentence question, but there is a question at the end of that is a direct question or an incomplete statement. even though it's based on just one question or statement, there could be a reading passage, a graphic, a table, or a combination of all of those that you have to look at, analyze, interpret in order to answer that question. There will always be 4 or more answer options. So those are your single questions. Your clustered sets, there are scenarios, and that scenario could be a page long, and there are 2 or more questions that relate to that scenario. And again, there could be all of these things that go with it. There are definitely videos. They will have you watch a video. It could be possibly be a principal meeting with a teacher about his or her walkthrough into that classroom, or a data meeting. I don't, the sample that we see is of a classroom visit, but it could be of anything. So there can be that classroom observation, the table, surveys, all sorts of things that, again, you have to analyze to answer the questions that go with the scenario. And then, of course, the constructed response or short answer essay questions. You're going to have to show your knowledge in several areas: data, instruction, curriculum, coaching. You're going to have to pull all of that together as if you were the principal and talk about how you would address a teacher or how you would address a parent. Again, I have not seen anything other than the prep manual. Of course, I'm not allowed to see anything, and there are not any release tests. So I'm basing this on the webinars I've been to with TEA, the prep manual, things of that nature. But you're going to have to pull and write your written response that is going to provide how you would address the situation. And not only do you have to address the situation, you have to justify the steps that you take, why you did what you did. The constructed response questions, there are 4 of those, and they stand alone. So constructed response question 1 is totally different from 2, which is totally different from 3, and totally different from 4. They are document-based case studies. So in your courses, a lot of times you have to do case studies. I know in 5680, the one that is going on right now, and I keep referencing that because I'm the lead instructor on that, and so I know how it is built to address this assessment. But there will be case studies, things that describe what's going on in a school. There are going to be several documents that you have to look at: lesson plans, student work, notes from the superintendent, parent emails, different surveys. You're going to have to read the case study, look at all the documents, and then present how you are going to, as the principal, address that situation. There will be multiple parts. It's not just a one question, how are you going to do this? There are A, B, and C, at least 3 parts. And those 3 parts build on each other. So what you write in for A is going to impact what you say in B and what you say in C. Those 3 things have to be aligned. The writing for these is based then holistically. There's a rubric. Again, it's a 1 to 4. It does not have anything on the rubric that addresses grammar or format. I said as long as it's readable and the grammar is not so horrible that they can't make sense of what you're saying, they don't take off for that. And it does not require any APA. But you do still want to write to the best of your ability. You will have time, you can kind of outline it and then type in what you want to say. If you just start writing, it may get kind of jumbled. You do want it to flow well, and you want to be able to describe what it is you're doing, and then analyze and justify what you said. So as you write these, you're going to give them information. You're going to state, just like you tell the kids when they're writing, they have to have a topic statement, and then they build on that statement and they justify what they've said. You're going to be doing the same thing. Just like you do in papers you write for class. You're going to, tell us what it is you're doing and justify it. Give back what they've given you. Justify it through those documents. Justify it through whatever they've provided to you in the scenario. So you're going to, again, describe and justify and interpret it. And you're going to have 3 different parts of it. So 3 different, what I would call guiding prompts that you have to address as you go through those 4 questions. We've been told by TEA in the webinars, and I've been told by the students who have taken it, that these are designed to take you 30 minutes each. 30 minutes times 4 is, that's 2 hours of your 4 hours and 45 minutes. If you spend too long on these, you may feel rushed in the select response questions. So you really have to watch your time, is what I'm trying to say. My student who didn't finish the constructed response questions just lost track of time. And she said, I spent an hour on the first response question because I wanted to make sure it was really, really good. Then she was unable to finish everything else. So time management is extremely important during this exam. This is a copy of the scoring rubric. I know it's probably too small for you to actually see, but it is in the prep manual you can see down here in the corner, page 285. I would encourage you to familiarize yourself with this rubric prior to taking the 268. Know what a 4 is. Know what a 1 is. Know what that 2 and 3 are, and strive to reach the 4. There is not a copy of this rubric on the test site when you go to test. You just have to remember what it is, and it's all about detail, specification, being thorough, being very specific. So familiarize yourself with this rubric. It will help you immensely as far as you go in your writing. Okay, I'm going to take you into the website now. Let me go.
Dr. Jennings,
yes.
Sorry to interrupt, but I think we can't see the PowerPoint. You just have the camera on yourself.
Are you serious?
Yes.
I have been sitting here the whole time talking.
I thought you were going to switch back, but I didn't know if you were going
to. That's awesome. Thank you, Michael. Interrupt me before that next time. Lovely.
Sorry.
I guess I just look great. I had it shared. I'm not sure why it did that. Okay, let me try again. Okay. Now can you see my PowerPoint, Michael?
Yes. Yes,
okay.
It's up now.
Oh my gosh. Okay, people, let me go back. I'm not going to start the whole thing over, but let me just quickly show you what's in this. I'm so embarrassed. Hang on. Let me do that. Okay. All right. Here's the one that said, I'm just going to leave it on this instead of the full screen. How did we get here? And this link right here would take you to the principal standards that I had pop up. It won't pop up when I'm in this mode, but that's where I showed you the laws. And then the 5 requirements are here of what you need to be to have the certification. I talked about that. Here are the basics. The things I talked about here, the number of test questions, the time limit. Here's the scoring. Whoops, let me go back to this one. Here's the scoring with the phase-in model. Okay, 36 out of 58 questions, 20 out of 32 points for the constructed response questions. This is the assessment breakdown where I talked about how leading learning has the largest percentage of questions on the test, and then school culture is right behind that. And the question formats, the 3 question formats: single, clustered, and constructed response. This slide explains the single questions. This slide explained the clustered set questions, where you have a scenario, 2 or more questions related to it, and you're going to have documents that you have to review as well to help you answer those. The constructed response questions. This is again where you're going to have to justify, describe what you write. I've told it's a standalone. Each of those 4 questions is a standalone. There are multiple parts to the question, A, B, and C, and it's document based. Okay, and then how they're scored: 1 to 4, no grammar, no APA. The types of writing: descriptive and analytic writing. You're going to tell what it is you're going to do and then justify it with the analytic writing. And this is the constructed response rubric. Again, that will not be on the exam, so you want to familiarize yourself with it. And then I was going to go into the preparation manual. But before I do that, since I messed up and there were no slides, does anyone have a question at this point? I'll go ahead and address any questions you might have since you were not able to actually follow along. You can just unmute yourself and feel free to ask any questions that you might have.
Hi, could you tell me if the response question should be in first person or just as the principal should?
You can do it in first person as what you actually would do, because you are looking at it as how you would address that situation.
All right, great. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else? Okay, let me go back.
Where can we find a copy of the constructed response rubric?
I'm about to show you that in all of this preparation.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. And again, I apologize that you guys were not seeing the PowerPoint, but I am going to post the PowerPoint along with the recording through in all of the courses. So you would be able then, if you want to go back and look at the PowerPoint, you will be able to do that, and then just have it for your reference as well. I'm so sorry, Michael, interrupt me if I do something else really bad, okay?
All right, no problem.
Don't hesitate. All right, let me see if I can. I need to go. I need to get out just a minute. And go back. Okay. Let's see. Okay, Michael, can you see my screen that's now at a website?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I don't know how it didn't do that right last time then, because I did the very same thing I just did. Okay, this website right here that I'm on, when you have that PowerPoint, if you click on the link I just had there that said Texas Prep Manual Preparation, it's going to take you to this website, and it's tx.nesinc.com. And it should pop up. If it doesn't, this website is listed later on in the PowerPoint. When you're here on this site, you'll see they have some study tips for you, developing a plan, and then right here, Principal as Instructional Leader Preparation Manual. This is something you really, really, really need to have. I will tell you it's pretty thick, but if you don't mind printing, it's a good thing to print off and work through. Okay, so let me go to that. Michael, can you still see it?
Yes, we're good.
Okay. All right. This is the preparation manual. And within this, it has the rubric that I just showed you. It talks about the test in general. It has the domains, which we're working on through your courses. It has the standards that I pulled up on that first slide that unfortunately didn't come through that you can see. It has the test framework, which is what I had in that PowerPoint that shows you the percentages for each of the questions. Talks about the question formats. What's really good in here, there are sample questions. There is also the answer key and rationales. And I'm going to be showing you some of these so that you can see what type of questions are on the exam. Then one of the things that I like best is it has samples of constructed response questions, but not only does it have that, it gives you tips for how to respond, and then it also has a response for the questions, and it shows you what's a 4 and what's a 1 so that you can see, and as you begin to practice different responses and writing your work maybe for a class, what's a 4 and work towards that. There's a key terms list as well, which knowing those terms, making flashcards out of those would be helpful so that you know as you're reading how they're using a term. Some terms your district may call it something else, but on this exam, this is what they're going to use. An example would be site-based decision making. Some districts may call that a campus improvement committee, but it's a site-based decision-making committee according to state law. So you want to familiarize yourself with the terms that that they use from TEA. And then there's a list of resources. And here is the rubric, constructed response scoring rubric, page 285. So it's at the very back. So what I'd like to do at this point is just briefly show you a couple of things in this manual and then get to some of the questions. What I want to mainly, where it talks about preparation programs, these are reflective questions for us as professors at UNT. These are things we should familiarize ourselves with and make sure we're doing within our courses. There are things for reflective questions for candidates. So these are the ones that would apply to you. They made one manual for the EPPs and for the candidates. So always look for the candidate reflective questions. This tells you about the test, which is what I went over on the PowerPoint, and I do have a slide in there. It may be easier to pull up slides than to try to find everything in this manual, especially if you don't print the manual. As you saw, it's 285 pages. Now, if you can print front back, you're going to save some paper, but otherwise it's a lot. But I'm the kind of person who likes to scribble and write and do, so mine's printed. Shows you the domains, which is what I had also on a slide. Shows you again, leading learning is your heavily weighted domain. School culture is second, and then human capital. All of this has to do with instructional leadership, though. It's all about data, culture, climate, parents, stakeholders, walkthroughs, professional development. Those are the major points that are going to be on this test. And again, it explains to you that ethics, equity, and diversity are integrated throughout other domains. Okay, the standards, I went over this. I showed you the Texas Administrative Code. Okay, what I want to show you on the domains in this book, which is really handy, the ones that are bolded and have an asterisk beside them, these are the ones that they focus on for the exam. So these are the ones, like Domain 1 Competency 1 has A through J. That's a lot, but only 4 of those are really going to be tested. Just like the texts that kids are tested on, there's a jillion of them, but you know which ones the state focuses on. Same thing. This is what they've done for us. So as you look through here, familiarize yourselves with the ones that are bolded and highlight or asterisk. Okay, it has all of those listed for you. This is a good tool for your courses as well. If you need something to help you, we use this in the internship as they develop their plan of action and things. So it's a good tool to have here. I'm going to scroll on down and show you where it gets into, it explains the question formats. I explained all of that to you, but if you like to read and understand and highlight and annotate, this is where you can do it. It talks to you about how to think through the questions, this cognitive process. Okay, what is it that it's asking? What's the context? What's the decision? You know, it's kind of like, I'm going to relate it back to when we teach kids. We have them find keywords. What's the question asking? You know, what is it that they really want to know? What's the information in it that's extra information that you don't need? Use those same test-taking strategies that you teach your students. Same type test, except it's harder. I will tell you, everyone says it's hard. So I don't want to minimize that, but I'm trying to put it into a context that I know you deal with every single day. Here's an example question, and it talks you through the cognitive process. This is their think aloud for how to answer this question. So it's showing you that process that these test writers went through to answer the questions. And then here's test taking strategies that it would give you as well. It tells you the correct answer and it gives you the rationale. And it's going to give you this piece for every question in this manual. So this is one of the tools that you should use to study, are the questions in this book itself. It moves on to clustered questions. These are the ones that I told you there's going to be a scenario and there's going to be a lot of information, lots of documents, videos, things of that nature. So it's giving you some different strategies to use for this type of a question. As you see, this one is a video that they give you the sample of. In this video, this principal has done a walkthrough on this teacher's classroom, and he's discussing this with her. She's doing a lot of the talking, and then the question is about how he's going to assist her. What's the thing that he's going to basically tell her that would make her think about how to improve that lesson? So here's all these strategies on how to do this, and the answers and the rationale. So there's a lot more on that type of a question for strategies, and here again's the rationale. And they give you another question because they're going to show you different things that you have to look at. And keep moving on down. And then we come into the practice questions, selected response. Remember, these are the ones that have a single question or a kind of a fill in the blank type thing. They leave you with how to answer that question. So that's going to start on page 31. And it shows you here, questions 1 through 4 refer to the following information. So here's the scenario. Now the questions, though, are going to be standalone type questions. But I'm going to move to some that I've marked in the PowerPoint and show you, because I want you to see the different kinds of questions, even though they're all selected response. I'm going to go to page 35. This is one that is it's a single question, selected response. And one thing that's also good about this manual is they tell you which competency the question relates to. That will not happen on the real test. You will not know what competency it is. But what they're trying to help you do in this prep manual is learn the competencies, because if you know the competencies, they feel like it will help you in your answer. Because if you know, okay, competency 1, that's all about vision, mission, school culture, stakeholders, then that could impact the answer that you give. So you can see this one gives you just a little paragraph, and then how does it ask it? Campus improvement team in a low performing school uses 3 questionnaires to gather data. One questionnaire asks students something, another asks parents, the third asks teachers. The responses in the questionnaire will be most valuable for helping the team determine this is that fill in the blank. So and one thing to do is make sure that the answer fits the sentence. Okay, sometimes that's an easy way to eliminate, is it's just not gonna, it may not fit. So that's one type of a single response, just a single paragraph, fill in the blank. There are 4 answers there to choose from. Let me show you another one that's gonna be totally different. This one, question 4, this is based on competency 3, which is about your curriculum. It's curriculum and instruction, all about leading a school through instructional strategies. So you have, again, your little bit of a scenario here. A principal coaches a 2nd grade teacher who's struggling to determine whether the expectations and work products of a writing lesson taught the day before are at an appropriate level of rigor. This one, you have to sequence, and you're going on the test, you will drag and drop into the correct box. So if you're not real techie, you want to practice this type of a skill as well. I know everyone probably has computers in their school, you're used to email, things like that, but there are going to be some other things. So you want to drag, drop, move it around, that sort of thing. So this is another type of single response question that you might be asked. So that it's, like I said, it's going to vary. Another one, I'm going to jump to page 72. This one's competency 7, which competency 7 has to do with communication with staff, communication with stakeholders, that sort of thing. So this one, you've got a table of data, and the question is going to be under that data. So you're going to read your little scenario. You're going to have to analyze the data in the table. Based on the survey data, Ms. Sawyer should blank. So you have to stop and think. So one of the things, if you're not familiar with reading charts, graphs, tables, things of that nature, you're going to want to maybe visit with your principal, visit with an instructional coach, a department chair, a team leader, someone who is familiar and works with all of that data, and get them to sit down and share some of that with you. We have you do it in classes, so hopefully you are getting practice with that. But if you need more, those are people you could go to on your campus to be able to do those things. On the 068, they used to use the TAFER, which is your school report card. They don't have that on here. They may have a snippet of it that you have to look at, but on the old test, they'd have the entire TAFER, and they would ask questions specifically about that one document. This, as you can see, is going to use a multitude of documents and things. So you need to be familiar with lots of different ways to read and interpret data. We go to one more single response question. I wanted to show you this one because of what the question asks. It gives you your paragraph of your little scenario, but then this one is, the principal will address the issue most effectively by taking which 2 of the following steps. So there's an A, B, C, D, E, and you on the test would pick 2. So there's lots of different test formats, lots of different things you need to familiarize yourself with. So when you actually sit down there for that 5 hours, you're not surprised or caught off guard by any of the formats. think about when you took years ago, when you maybe took a GRE or even the SAT or something like that. I know I got the practice things and looked at the format, because if you know the format, that's going to save you some time instead of having to think, okay, what is it they're wanting me to do? Okay, 2, I know what I have to do. So familiarize yourself. Okay, so those are some examples of single questions in the selected response. Remember, there are 70 selected response questions. I'm going to jump to clustered sets. Okay, page 74. First thing to notice is this clustered set addresses questions 33 through 38. So those questions refer to all of this information. So this clustered set actually runs from page 74 to page 85. So when you're on there, you'll be needing to read, look at data, maybe reread, things like that. One of the things that you will have, and I put this information in the tips, so it is on the PowerPoint, they give you like laminated sheets of paper that you can take notes on. It's almost like a dry erase board. So one of the things I would encourage you to do too is to practice with that laminated or a dry erase board, because you're going to have to write, maybe erase, things like that. They'll give you maybe several sheets of that, but you may have to mark through some of it, erase it, that sort of thing. And if you're like me, I'm a lefty, and that smears for me. So you may need to figure out how to best write on something like that, because you don't just get paper and pencil. You get to take nothing in there. So what they give you is what you get. So this one, you can see there's this long scenario, and then it tells you which documents. You've got 4 documents you're going to look at. You're going to look at the District Literacy Initiative. You're going to look at a snapshot of literacy for all district program evaluation, teacher survey results, a Literacy for All implementation plan. So, again, you're going to be reading this. I'm not going to take the time to read it to you. I'm just showing you what they look like. The documents then are next. Here's the District Literacy Initiative, more reading, lots and lots of reading. Here's the snapshot of literacy for all, the district program evaluation. Again, it's got a table, a summary of the trends, the teacher survey results, knowing how to interpret those, and the implementation plan. Once you've read through all of that, then there are your questions. Now, what's different about this one, you have your case scenario in the beginning, but then they're going to give you another little paragraph to read that's going to be what you're addressing in the question. So this one, you're going to review the list of possible questions below and determine which 2 questions are supported by the data. All those 4 pages. Then you're going to have to select the appropriate action for the principal to take to gather more information to improve the school's implementation of the initiative. So here you're going to put in the questions that you think are the best questions, and then the appropriate actions. So it's definitely multi-step thinking. So that's why they give you kind of their think alouds on how they would work through these, but they don't give you a think aloud on every possible type question. What you'll want to do after you answer these is to definitely go to the back of the manual, look at the correct answers and the rationale. So very different type questions involved. Lots of reading, lots of thinking, and going back and referring. Okay, let me show you another one that's totally different from this one. Page 87. This one is going to cover questions 41 to 45. It's going to go from page 87 to 96. So again, you have the scenario at the beginning. This time the documents, student demographic information for 2 different middle schools, an initial transition plan from the superintendent, how they're going to merge those 2 schools, a student survey of results, and a summary of parent perceptions from focus groups, an email regarding staff allocations. So you want to familiarize yourself with staff allocations. Your principal has to look at those every year when they determine how many classrooms they're going to have of English, or how many second grade classrooms they're going to have. So that's something principals do. And then letter to the parents about the STEM program. And here come your documents. Here's the student demographic information from both schools. So knowing how to read this. Here's the transition plan from the superintendent, the months, what he plans to do to merge the schools. Here's the student survey results. Here's a summary of parent perceptions from focus groups. And here's an email from the principal to the superintendent regarding staffing allocations. And here's a letter to the parents. And a document that they're including with their letter. So lots and lots of different things. I can't emphasize that enough, becoming familiar with lots of different documents to read. Again, it's telling you which competency that this question deals with. So, you know, if they're merging 2 schools, yeah, it's going to be about culture, climate, stakeholders, those sorts of things. This one is just like we saw in the beginning. It's just a question, except. This one is, which 3 of the following actions should Mr. Kapoor plan to implement for the successful merger? So it's not just a 1. You've got 5. Which 3 should he take? This one, this is a different kind. For each row, determine if the planned activity only responds to parent feedback or goes beyond responding to parent feedback and helps parents become an integral part of the school culture. And you'll have to mark, does this activity respond to their feedback, or does it help them become integral in the school culture? This one, which of the following best supports his request for choosing the teaching staff based on his staff projections? So this is just a single question, single answer. This one goes back to, which 3 of the following actions should he take before sending out the letter? And then the last one for this one, once the staff have been selected, he's ready to determine the remaining portion of the transition. Which of the following is the most immediate action? Keywords, most immediate action. And you select here. Then it jumps right back into a single response question. So they're intertwined all throughout those 70 questions. You may have clusters, and then you may have single response. But again, there's just lots of reading as you go through, lots of documents that you have to know how to interpret. Okay, so that's again the selected response 70. Right now, getting 32 out of 58 of those correct is what's going to get you a passing score. Now it's only 58 because remember 12 of the 70 are field test items. So they're in here, they're just not graded. I'm going to jump to constructed response questions. Okay. This one's just taking us to constructed response question 2. It just talks about what they're based on, general directions, the sample question, refer to the documents provided and respond to the question below. Okay, so this is all about Miss Franz, she's a middle school principal. She's going to meet with the new 8th grade math teachers and goes on about mathematics units equations. The documents, an excerpt from the 8th grade math unit plan, side-by-side comparison of the day 7 exit ticket, and release state-mandated assessment questions. And this is the question that you would address. Notice, as I told you, there's an A, a B, and a C. In preparation for Ms. Franz's meeting with the 8th grade teacher, she plans to review the mathematics unit and associated documents so she is ready to provide input and guide the teachers during the meeting. Identify the 2 most important areas of the unit plan needing improvement. Tells you that's document 1 of the 2. Justify why you selected each area of focus. So you're going to have to answer all of A. Then you do B. Okay, this could happen if you're like, I'm more of a language arts person. Math is not something that, and I shouldn't say that. I know math teachers don't like to hear that, but math is something I struggle with. But here I would have to create an exemplar that can be used to demonstrate a high quality example of one of the identified areas needing improvement. So whatever I identify in A, I'm going to have to create an exemplar in B. And then in C, I'm going to explain how I, as the principal, should use the exemplar to coach the teachers in the area needing improvement. So as we go down, here are the documents. This is their unit plan. Remember, I have to identify, go back up, I have to identify the 2 most important areas needing improvement. So based on my knowledge and my experience in curriculum and instruction, I need to determine 2 areas that need improvement. But I'm going to review the unit plan, and then I'm going to look at their exit ticket and how that aligns with the state mandated test question. And it gives you the tech that's here. So after you analyze those, and it keeps going on down, those 2 documents, it's going to give you a suggested approach on how to answer that constructed response question. And I think it's extremely important. I know some of my previous interns said this is what really helped them. They followed these guidelines on how to address it. They followed these test-taking strategies, and then they looked at the examples. Here's a sample response. And they looked at the 4, and it's like, okay, they watched how they looked at how they addressed, here's A, the first important area, the second important area, here's the exemplar, and then here's how she should coach. You need to be very specific, very direct. Use the information they've given you to justify what's there. So from those documents, pull information. With your exemplars, you know, if you struggle with writing exemplars, start working on that in your own classroom, developing exemplars. But you can also go back to their exemplar and rewrite, kind of changing how many students. They're not selling tickets, they're selling cookies, and using different numbers, those sorts of things to write exemplars. So work on writing exemplars, especially if it's in an area you're not familiar with. But this area for the cognitive piece, the test-taking piece, I'm going to tell you, they said that was extremely important to use. And you can also link to the scoring rubric here. It's also at the back. So they give you an example of a 4, and you see how that's laid out. A paragraph of the first need, and you can see where they have justified day 1 to 3 of the unit plan are spent on the lowest level text. Only 2 days of instruction are spent on this. So they're using the information they were given to explain why they're writing what they're writing. Like I said, there's the exemplar, and here's what this. Okay, let me go down to, and there's the rationale for the 4. Let's go down to show you this is a 3, 2 important areas needing improvement, 1, 2, B, high quality exemplar, C, here's the plan for coaching. This one's just not as, it's not as specific, not as in-depth, not as thorough. I'm going to go on down. I'm going to take you all the way down to a 1 so you can see the difference in the 4 and the 3 and the 1. Let me get down here. Okay. Here's the 1. Area 1 needing improvement. When I look at the plan, I'm not sure that the pacing provided is appropriate for the skills being taught and whether or not ample time for instruction is planned so that the students will be able to master the text skills being taught. It might help if the pacing portion of the plan, including activities that the plan included activities that the teachers could use in each lesson. They answered the question. It's general. There's nothing there really specific from that plan that's justifying what they need. Same thing with the area of 2. The other thing that I noticed when I look at the unit plan is that the state questions have 2 questions. Again, that's the grammar on objective A and 2 questions on objective B. However, the exit ticket looks like it has 4 questions. This shows a lack of alignment that needs to be addressed. Very general. Is the number of questions really something that's going to impact, or the number of answers going to impact it? They don't even give an exemplar. That's not there. They skipped that piece altogether. And then it went to Ms. Franz and the coaching she should provide. So they didn't address A, B, and C. So that's a 1. Okay. Important to read through every bit of that and make sure you understand how to address all 3. This will actually also, I think, help you with PASL task because the PASL task, and I'm going to do a session on that in a few weeks, but there are guided prompts and you have to address every single guided prompt on those PASL tasks. And that's what this is doing, just in a shorter time frame and not as in depth. But same type thing. What are you going to do? Justify it based on the documents and answer every question. There's lots of times when you have multiple questions within a question and people tend to answer the first one and don't answer that second or third question. You can't do that. You have to make sure you've addressed every single question within the question. Okay, I'm on page 208. This one, this is the sample response. I've already gone through that, sorry. I've already done that part. And I showed you the 1. So that's a constructed response question. Let me go down and show you one more constructed response real quickly, just to show you the difference. There's the 1, and they're telling you what's wrong with it. Okay, here's another one. Again, it gives you the whole scenario. And then this one just has 1 document, exit ticket results, including the text and her analysis and plan based on the results. And then this one just has an A and a B. What are 2 high leverage questions that Ms. Aguilar should ask Ms. Zhang to help her improve analysis of the data in order to improve her current plan? Explain how each question can be used to help inform. So high leverage, I know we've talked about that in some classes. So you determine 2 questions and then how those questions are going to help her improve her instructional practice. So here's the exit ticket and the analysis. So you look at all of this and then you address, this is still going on into the exit ticket and the analysis. All of those. All right, and then again, it gives you the cognitive process, gives you the test taking strategy, and then you have your sample responses. Okay. Let me jump one more to I mentioned this to you, the key terms. This is page 276 and page 277, and in the slide presentation, it gives you this information as well. It gives you the key term and it gives you the definition. So again, making flashcards, making sure you're familiar with all of this is something that's important. And then the last thing they give you are some more resources. They used these resources in writing their questions and in developing this test. We have begun to use several of these in our coursework, and they've broken it down by domain, school culture, and what they've used, reading, learning, what they've used. And I would emphasize again, remember that domain 1 and 2 are high, I'm going to say high leverage on this test. So looking through those, and I know a lot of you are familiar with Teach Like a Champion. We've started using the leverage leadership. So you're familiar with a lot of those things. The last part of this book is the rubric. So that is there. Let me get out of this. Michael, you still seeing now do you see the PowerPoint?
Yes, it's up.
Okay, all right. Those are the questions I just went through. There are the key terms. These are some websites. This is the Pearson website where you would register for the test, find all of the information. This is the prep manual. Before I do that, I do want to show you a couple of, I'll have to wait and do that. Well, I think you can still see me. This is the Leverage Leadership 2.0 book. This is what it looks like. If you have not used it in your coursework, if you haven't taken those courses yet, this is the book we use in 5630, we refer to it some in 5680. It's used in 5650. So you'll become real familiar with it. Driven by Data is another one of Paul Bambrick-Santoyo's books that they say be familiar with. It's referred to in Leverage Leadership 2.0. Another one that's referred to that I don't have is Get Ready Faster. There is a new book that I do have, and these are listed at the end of the PowerPoint, but I'm showing them to you now as resources. This is a new book. It's not question and answer. It is a study guide. It says Texas Principal Toolkit and Study Guide. It's compiled by two UNT grads, actually, Dr. Vance Cortez Rucker and Dr. Sandy Cortez Rucker. And they're now researchers, and they focus on principal leadership and certification. This book, to me, would also be a good tool when you become an administrator, because it's more about what you do. It may have some laws and procedures in it, help you understand ELLs, Texas documentation, cybersecurity, co-teaching, contract and at-will employment. It just lots of information, and it has the competencies in it. So to me, it's kind of a review of a lot of things that you've learned. So it might come in handy for you. So those are some resources. Let me go into how you're approved to register. To be registered for the 268, you have to be enrolled in the internship, and that's at the end of your coursework, the 5500. There is one exception. You've completed your master's degree. You're waiting a semester to complete the internship because of something you have going on. You might take the test prior to the internship. But during the internship, students are required to take an interactive practice test, and I'll show you where that is as well. I do have some, like in this internship, who don't plan to take the 268 until next semester because they're working on PASL this semester. So an extension can be granted. But there is a $10 fee for that. You'll take the interactive practice test. You submit your reports to me. At that point, if you achieve 80% or higher on each of the 6 domains on the practice exam, you automatically receive permission to take the exam. If you score below 80% on 2 or more domains, you're going to get access to Certified Teacher, which is an online study program, and it has full-length tests and it has study modules for each of the domains. And you would be asked to complete study modules on the domains that you scored below 80% on, and you have to achieve at least a 90% or higher on those modules. You also then have to submit a certificate issued through certifiedteacher.com saying that you've spent at least 6 hours studying, and you submit that to us. We know you're through studying, you've done all those study modules, and either Dr. Stromberg or myself would look in to Certified Teacher. We do have access to everyone's accounts in there to see how you scored on those low domains. If you take the practice test and you only score below 80% on one domain, then you can contact whoever your internship supervisor is. That could be me. This semester, I'm the only one doing internship, so it would be me. Some semesters, we have other professors because of the number that are supervisors as well, or the adjunct assistant, who is Kira. Most of you know Kira. And we would offer you some, we'd probably just talk through that one with you, see what you scored low on, and help you with that. So that's how you get approved. You can't just automatically go in and register for the 268. We then, once we approve, we send Jessica Powell an email that you have approval. She signs you, she gives TEA notice that you've got approval, and you can sign up to take the 268. Registration information. This is the site you go to. It costs $200 for the exam. Let me show you this. These are the dates that it's offered, and it's hard to find this. This is one reason I put this in here. When you get to this page, through that link, this page is going to show you, the format, the time you get, the exam dates. This does not tell you when it's offered. Okay, don't go there. That has not worked. Exam sites, this is where you can locate a test center near you. And when you go down to score reporting, if you click on score report dates, it gives you the exam dates and when your score would be back. This is not offered ongoing like the 068. You could sign up daily for that. This is only offered a couple of weeks a month. So as you get into your internship or get close to your internship and you're thinking, okay, I've got PASL, I've got 268, kind of look at your goals, what it is you're wanting to do. When is it you're wanting to apply to be an administrator, and work backwards on your time frame. So if I've got interns now and they want to apply at midterm to become an administrator, they need to be taking the 268 and they need to be completing the PASL, because there are a lot of districts that will not even interview you if you do not have certification. Some districts might, but I have found with a lot of my interns, they cannot be interviewed without that certification. I'm sorry, those are my dogs. Without certification actually being on their certificate. So that could be an issue for some of you. So work backwards on your timeline. Okay. Come on. There we go. Let me go keep. For some reason it's not moving now. Okay. Interesting. I'll try again. There we go. Okay. Additional practice materials. Again, this is the link to the prep manual, and the interactive exam is there. These are the resources I just showed you. All of these resources, the first three anyway, the first three are available on Amazon. Leverage Leadership is actually available at the UNT Barnes & Noble bookstore. You can buy used ones, you can rent them, and that's because it is one of our textbooks. These other things are not textbooks, but they are on Amazon. This Texas Principal Toolkit, you have to actually go to their website, and I will add that to this PowerPoint before I post it. I sent it to my interns today, but I did not put it on this PowerPoint. It's like you have to go to texascert.com, and I will add that to this PowerPoint in case some of you are interested in that. I will tell you though, that book is like $50. So it's looks like it's very good, but you would be spending $50. And the other three on Amazon, they're mid-20s. So you could spend a fortune buying books. So that's your choice. No one's telling you to do that. It's just something that's there. Tips from completers. I think this is probably the best part of the PowerPoint. They said leverage leadership, get better faster are two must. Leverage leadership, what we have found is that test is heavily, heavily based on Leverage Leadership 2.0. So you'll have it in courses, but you need to really, really focus on it when you're in those classes, and then review it if you've already had those classes and you're not ready for the 268 yet. They say it really helps with the constructed response questions and how you address those. So very important book. And Get Better Faster, which is mentioned in Leverage Leadership. There's actually the rubric of that within there. Okay, they also, the test completers, I've told you 30 minutes per constructed response question. Some of those who took the pilot exam said they waited till the end because those questions come at the end. But you can move around in that test however you want to. So they saw them at the end and they answered them at the end, and they said they were so brain dead by that point, it was hard to answer those. So their suggestion, and what others did this summer, they split them up, or they answered those four first. If you split them, they were doing 2 at the beginning, answering all those multiple choice selected response questions, and doing 2 at the end. Watch your time. I've got to say that over and over, watch your time. The constructed response questions, again, I showed you in the prep manual, and I told you then how they said use that format to respond. They were very specific about that, just going, BAM A, BAM B, BAM C, and justifying it with information that was already given to you. Again, know how to read and interpret various kinds of data. Expose yourself to sitting for 5 hours. When you take the interactive practice exam, that gives you that experience. Find a quiet place and lock yourself in a room just like you were taking the real test. Also, the prep manual, I would encourage you, if you can, sit down and take it in a long time period, and don't look back at the answers until you're completely through. That's another test experience for you. I've already mentioned this, practice taking notes on a laminated sheet of paper or a dry erase board, because you're given the laminated sheets. Wear comfortable clothes. Think about layers, because you're not allowed to take in a jacket or a coat. Take nothing in with you. I had one who took it this fall, early September. They made her take off all her jewelry. Of course, no phones. Anything out of her pockets. They gave her a locker to put things in, but she said it's best to just not take it with you at all. Just leave it all at home, because they're going to make you take it off. With her, they did a pat down. They did a palm print. They actually took her picture. So it was more than airport security there. Be sure you register with the name on the ID that you plan to take with you. They have to match. I had another student who registered under, let's say, well, Michael, I'm going to use your name. I know you haven't taken it yet, but if he registers as Mike Gomez and his ID says Michael Gomez, he has to prove that's him. So, and it was a Mike that did that. So you need to make sure you register with the exact name that's on your ID, kind of like with your passport. You have to do that sort of thing. You're allowed to tag questions if you're not sure about them. Don't spend a lot of time on it. You can move forward, go back. Okay, this is the one, the young lady who did not finish the test. This is what is from her. That she said the timer on the computer is up like in the right-hand corner, and it's in minutes. She did not check her time when she started and didn't realize that it was even there. And then when she saw it, she didn't realize she was just so tired and confused that it was in minutes. So she said to tell people, be sure to check the time when you start and keep track of how much time you have. Plan on 30 minutes per constructed response. That's from the state. That's from people who have taken it. The one who talked about the timer and didn't finish spent way too much time on constructed response questions and then had to rush through selected response and still didn't finish her last constructed response question. So pacing is extremely, extremely important. Okay, that's all I have on the 268. Just so you know, there will be a PASL information session on November 7th. Pre-registration is required. That's the link to pre-register. And I'll be going through everything on PASL. I promise to have the PowerPoint where it shows when I talk. And I'll be sure someone tells me if it doesn't. Again, thank you, Michael, for that. That's what I have for this. There's my contact information. If you need to email me about anything, I'm happy to visit with you. I will post the PowerPoint and the recording in the courses so that you can refer back to it. And at this time, I'm going to get out of this. I'm going to stop sharing and see if anyone has questions or concerns that I can address. You see, I see in the chat box, that was Michael. Sorry, Michael. I didn't have my chat box open.
That's all right.
Does anybody have a question or a comment? Okay, then. If you come up with something later, feel free to email me. More than happy to help you. Again, I look forward to working with you because I do work closely with the people taking the 268, taking the PASL, the interns. That's kind of my main role. So I'm here ready to help anytime you need it. Hope you all have a good evening.
Hey, Dr. Jennings, I have a quick question.
Yes.
I'm going to be unable to attend that Zoom meeting because I'll be in Atlanta on a school trip.
Mhm.
Is there a way that I can register for it so I still get the PowerPoint that you go over that day?
Yes, and it will also be posted in the classes, Janae. So if you're
Okay,
in
awesome.
classes, it should also get posted. But go ahead and register. So I'll have your email just in case the PowerPoint or the recording doesn't work for some reason. That kind of thing happens. So I want to be
Okay,
sure I
awesome.
get
Yeah, I
something.
was sad. I saw the date and I said, oh no, I'll be in Atlanta. So just want to make sure I can still get that information.
And that one does, I know I scheduled this one for 2 hours and we finished early. That one normally takes the full 2 hours
Yes.
because it is more in depth.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
All right. Anybody else before we go?
I do, Dr. Jennings, but it's about the mid-session meeting. So I don't know if you want to answer.
Yeah, I'll close this out, Michael, and
Okay.
then you stay on and I'll stay on.
All right.
Okay. All right. I'm going to stop the recording at this point. Everyone have a good evening.